I'm going to break them up as usual. You know the drill, right? I start splitting things in order to analyze them. That's what lis is. Lis is to cut, right? So I'm cutting things. I'm going to cut them up into intrinsic incentives and extrinsic incentives. So intrinsic incentives have to do with, I'll give you examples. So there are things like flow, the feeling of flow, the feeling of truly being engaged in a certain task and performing that task purely for the pleasure, the intrinsic satisfaction of having performed it and performed it well. Right? So think about a very talented developer, a software developer. Think about an artist. Okay? There is an enormous amount of intrinsic motivation that contributes to why that person does what he or she does. Okay? And the important thing here about intrinsic incentives is the fact that they are not easy to control from the outside. So if I say to Richard Wagner, I'll pay you $1 million if you write an opera called The Flying American instead of The Flying Dutchman, you might say, go jump in the lake. Right? It's The Flying Dutchman that I'm going to write. Okay? Or one of my developers at Redline, and I know exactly who. Okay? If I tell them I want you to work on a quadrature amplitude modulation modem, not on an orthogonal frequency multiplexing modem, because he is wedded to orthogonal frequency multiplexing ideologically, he would say, go jump in Lake Ontario. Okay, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to leave. If you make me work on anything else, doesn't matter what the market says. That's the way it is. Okay? On the other hand, if I say, well, given you're going to work on an OFDM modem, do this little bit, this little change here and this little other change here, and by the way, there's this really interesting theoretical problem that arises from all of this, then he will say, oh, that's fantastic, I'll do this for free. In fact, I'll take a pay cut. Okay? So it's a matter of really, truly understanding the nature of the incentive and designing the task. Quite often we assume that if you throw more money, especially more contingent money at people, that they're going to work harder, not that people work harder. In fact, some people are going to be insulted by this. For some people, it's not going to make a difference at all. And other people are going to find ways of manipulating you into thinking that. In fact, they would have done that work for free. Okay. Extrinsic incentives, I'm going to break them up into pecuniary, which is just a legal way of saying financial, and non-pecuniary. And in non-pecuniary, I want to include things like status, prestige, and rank. And you might say, well, rank is associated with pecuniary compensation. Not always. Just look at companies like General Motors or IBM. There are particular hierarchically organized subdivisions in which hierarchical rank is in fact not correlated with higher financial compensation. Okay. Those tend to be mostly staff positions as opposed to line positions, but still, right? It's not automatic that you get more money on account of being promoted to a higher level of responsibility. And pecuniary compensation, I'm going to further subdivide into fixed and variable. And variable I'm going to subdivide into cash and non-cash. And I suppose I could do the same thing with fixed, and I will explain why in a minute, although this is a little bit splitting hairs. You know what I mean by non-cash pecuniary, right? Options, warrants, shares.